viewers, welcome back to the course of creating JavaScript web application using HTML, CSS, jQuery, tooling with Webpack and Node.js framework. In today's video, I will show you how you can install the software required for this application. This is not the software that is required just for this application. These are the softwares which you needed anyhow whenever you want to do any JavaScript Node.js development. Therefore, it is useful for your other projects as well. Next, you will see how I will demonstrate you to download the source code from the starter source code GitHub location. After that, I will show you what are the files present in the starter source code and how the folder is structured inside that. Next, you can see how you can run the starter source code at your own laptop or desktop. And then you can see the user registration form in your own machine. Once everything is good, then I will teach you how you can check in your source code that is running in your laptop currently into your own GitHub account. And then I will teach you how you can create your own GitHub repository and then how from VsCode you can check in your source code to the GitHub. Before we begin, let's do one important thing. Please go ahead and subscribe to the Full Stack Master channel if you have not yet subscribed or missed it. Are you looking for some course where you want to start your own JavaScript web application from the beginning till the end and deploy the code into some production environment or over the cloud? Are you also looking an opportunity to write some web application where there is a Node.js or Webpack is used? Do you also want to learn how to create branch in GitHub and submit your own web application into the GitHub? And also, have you ever been exploring how to deploy your own application into the cloud? Then this is the course for you. You should never miss this course. And please continue this course from the beginning till the end. In the upcoming videos, when we will start writing our code and designing our components, you will learn single responsibility principle. You will also learn abstractions rule, how to abstract away some of the concerns of your application towards your software. You will also see how you can write an event-based architecture in JavaScript, and you will see how you can organize your existing code in JavaScript. So without doing any delay, let's go ahead and do the installations which is required for this project. Nowadays, in order to write any JavaScript web application, you need minimum 2 frameworks to be installed in your own Windows desktop or Mac desktop. For example, if you are trying to write any JavaScript web application, then you need Node.js. If you want to use any open source code management system, then basically you should consider GitHub. So GitHub is very popular nowadays. Therefore, if you are using Windows desktop, then consider deploying the GitHub into your own desktop. Now I will explain you and demonstrate you what are the softwares you need to deploy in order to write any JavaScript web application powered by Node.js. In order to write any JavaScript web application where you need Webpack or any NPM packages, then you need to install Node.js in your desktop. In order to submit your code into GitHub right from the desktop that you are working on, then you need to consider installing Git. Git has installations for both Windows and Mac, and I will demonstrate you how you can install the Git in your Windows environment. The third important thing that you need in order to do JavaScript web application development is some editor. I like VsCode very much because it has large number of extensions that it is supported, and I like some of the extensions that I use in VsCode which helps me to write JavaScript code very efficiently. Therefore, I will demonstrate you how you can deploy VsCode in your own desktop so that you can start writing code in the VsCode itself. Now, I will teach you how you can install the Git in your Windows desktop. So let's go to the Git download URL page. From there, you will see there is a download button that you can click on, and then you can download the Git installation executable file to your own desktop. Once the Git installation file is downloaded successfully to your desktop, you can go ahead and run it for your own deployment. Once you run the Git, it will show you first license information that you can read. Next, if you click, then you will see all of the checkboxes which are checked. I will keep all of them as default. Next, it will ask you which kind of editor Git will use as its default editor. So here there are various options. The default option that it selects is the Vim text editor, and there are a lot of editors available like VsCode also you can select as your editor for the Git command line prompt. However, currently I am going with the default one. I will select the Vim as my text editor for the Git. You are feel free to select any option that is good for you. In the next step, Git will ask you that from here you want to run the CLI for the Git. In the first option, it will ask you, do you want to run the Git only from the Git bash? In the second option, it will ask you that do you want to run the Git from the Git command line and as well as from any third-party software. And in the third option, it will give you default Unix tool. However, I will select the second option, which is the default one, so that I can run my command line of the Git from my VS Code as well. Next, Git will ask you to choose the HTTPS transport backend. Here, I will use the OpenSSL library. Next, Git will ask you to configure the line ending conversions. And here I will select the default option again. Next, it will ask you to configure the terminal emulator. Here I will use the min-tty, which is the default terminal. Next, Git will ask you to configure some extra options. You can enable the file caching and also you can enable the Git credential management. In the next step, I want to select all of the experimental features that Git has introduced, and then I will click on the install button. After clicking on the install button, Git will go ahead and deploy all of the required files that is needed in order to connect to the GitHub. Once it is successfully installed in your desktop, what you can do is you can go ahead and open a command prompt. Through this command prompt, I can learn whether my Git software is installed in my desktop or not. In order to check whether your Git is deployed in your software and my environment variables are already updated, I am going to use this command prompt and I am going to write a script which will print the Git version. If it is successfully printing the Git version, that means that your Git is successfully installed in your desktop and it is updated the path of the system as well. So let's go ahead and write git space --version. When you run this script, you will see that it is printing the Git version that is installed for your Windows desktop. With this, you know that Git is successfully installed in your desktop and now you can use the Git. After that, feel free to go to the GitHub online and create your own account if you have not yet created, and then you can go ahead and successfully connect to the GitHub from your local desktop for checking your source code to the GitHub. In this video, once our software is installed, I will demonstrate you how you can connect to the GitHub and submit the source code that you have in your desktop to your own GitHub account. Therefore, stay tuned and we will see in this video how you can deploy your source code to the GitHub repository. You can see your source code right away in the GitHub repository online. While writing JavaScript web application nowadays, there is very important thing that is needed in your own desktop is Node.js. Nowadays, all of the dev tools like Webpack and any third-party applications like Karma or Jasmine, any software that you want to run in your local dev tooling purpose are built up on Node.js environment. Therefore, it is always good idea to install Node.js in your desktop to enable your machine to run all of these kind of tools which is needed to power your web application. Now I will teach you how you can install Node.js into your own desktop. Let's go ahead to the Node.js download URL page, and there you can see it will show you all of the options that you want to download into your own machine. It will give you Windows 32-bit and 64-bit MSI that you can download and install in your machine. So feel free to download whichever installations that you need for your own desktop. I am using 64-bit machine, therefore I will select the 64-bit one and then I will download the Node installation file for my own machine. Once the Node installation file is downloaded, let's go ahead and run it. It will first compute all of the space required in order to install the Node software for your own desktop. Then let's click on the next button. And here you can read all of the license related information and accept it. Next, you can choose the location where you can install the node. I will keep the default location and I will select next option. Here with the core node, it will also install the Node.js and it will also set up and install the npm so that you can run npm commands. So remember, whenever you install Node.exe, it will also install npm in your machine. And it will also update all the path variables which is required for your desktop. Therefore, you can write npm command globally from your command line prompt. Click on the next button. It will ask you to deploy any third-party tools that you need. Sometimes you need a chocolatey tool that you need in your desktop in order to install some of the fonts. Then you can consider and select this button. Currently, I do not want to select and install any third-party softwares. Therefore, I will keep it unselected and then I will click on the next button. Next, it will ask you to install it. So let's go ahead and click on the install button and wait till it is installing in your desktop. Once Node is successfully installed, in order to confirm whether your installation happened successfully or not, we will do a quick check. So what we will do is we will open a command prompt, and from the command prompt, let's write a script. Let's go ahead and write node space -- version. So if node is successfully installed in your desktop and if it is registered in your environment variable path, then basically it should print the version that is installed in your desktop. So let's go ahead and do node space -- version and run this script. Once you run this script, it is going to print the node version. I am seeing my node version is successfully printed and I am sure that my machine has node now. So congratulations, now you are ready to do any kind of Node.js development in your own desktop. Now you can go ahead and write any JavaScript web application where you need Node or any npm third-party libraries. Now I will teach you how you can install VsCode in your own desktop. It is very easy. So first you have to go to the download page where you can download the VsCode. From the download page, you can select based on your desktop. If you are working on Windows, then download the Windows downloader file. If you are working on Mac, then download the Mac installation file. Once you have successfully downloaded the Visual Studio Code installation file, then please consider running it. If you are running it in the administrator mode, then it will prompt you with some of the notifications. Just click on OK and proceed on that. Next, read out all the license related information and then accept it. In the next step, you should consider selecting all of the checkboxes that is required here. What I do personally is I select all of them because I need all of these features in my desktop. Like whenever you are in a folder where you see some of the source code, from there if you want to open VsCode, then it is very good idea to select the option where in the context menu of the folder it will put the VsCode as one of the options. And with that, you can just right click into any folder and then you can say open with VsCode, which is very cool feature. That way you can open any source code right from the VsCode. Next, you can run on the install button and it will install the VsCode in your desktop. Once VsCode is successfully installed, you can always click on the open VsCode option and then you can see how VsCode looks like. In my course, I will be using a lot of VsCode extensions that is useful for this project. In my upcoming videos, I will give you the script that you can run and you can get all of the extensions that I'm using in your own desktop. So congratulations once again. Now you have VsCode also set up and done in your own machine. So now you can go ahead and run any JavaScript web application or any kind of languages. Right now VsCode is supporting like Python, Java, C#, all of this language coding you can do in VsCode. The advantage of VsCode is it has all of the extensions which are needed to run any kind of languages. It has support for all languages. So that way it is very important to install those extensions. So now you are ready to coding along with me because you have set up your environments. You have confirmed that you have Node.js, you have confirmed that you have Git, and you have also downloaded and installed the VsCode editor. Now let's go to my GitHub and go to the releases tab, and then you will see all of the releases that I have submitted. Now let's go to the first release, which is 1.0.0. In this release, you will see the starter source code. Let's go ahead and click on the download zip file. Once you download the zip file, you can go ahead and open the folder. Let's go ahead and rename the file. I will rename the 1.0.0 from the folder, and then I will open it from the VsCode. I hope you have successfully opened the source code in the VsCode. So now let's go ahead and understand the folder structure and all of the files that I have in my starter source code. You can see I have a client folder. Inside the client folder, I have the app folder. So app folder is the folder where I have all of my source code placed in it. So let's go to the index.js page. Here you can see there is nothing. It has just console log. And then you can see there is a favorite icon where I have a logo for this application. And then you will see there is an index.html page where I have all the required HTML in order to show the user registration form. So if you see and open the HTML page and go to the head section, inside the head section, you will see what are the different kind of libraries I am using for this web application. As you have noticed that I am using Bootstrap and I am using jQuery, and also I am using a tiny PubSub library. Tiny PubSub library is used to do event-based programming in JavaScript application. If you are using jQuery and you want to write an event-based application, then consider using tiny PubSub library, which is very useful to do any PubSub kind of architecture. If you are not familiar with publish and subscribe kind of architecture and programming, then do not worry. I will teach you while we will write our source code in the upcoming videos. You will learn how publish and subscribe works and how it helps you to decouple your components from each other. Next, you will see that I have some CSS that is required for my HTML page. So now it's a good idea to check out our HTML side by side. So let's go ahead and open our application in the side, and then what I will do is I will show you each and every portion of the page from the HTML, and then you can correlate what kind of HTML we have write for which portion of the page. Like you can see here, the nav bar that we have here over our application, which is in the green color, the same nav bar we have written in our HTML over here, and I have used Bootstrap for that. So you can see I have used a couple of CSS which is from the Bootstrap. Next, I have wrapped my form in the container. Container is a class again from Bootstrap which gives you a responsive UI where you can put all of your elements inside the container. So next you can see that there is an alert div. So this is the div that I am using to show all kind of alerts in my application, whether it is a successful alert, whether it is a validation messages, or it is a information. So let's go ahead and write something in the name to see some alerts. So you can notice it is showing some of the validation messages. So it is saying full name is invalid. So with that, you know that this is the HTML which is corresponding to this validation messages. Next, you can see that I have the input boxes, that is I am using full name and email ID for that. For them, you can see that I have HTML over here written. So you can notice that finally I have a table. And if you see, this table is empty and all of the rows will come dynamically whenever we will add any user. So suppose if I successfully write some full name and email ID and submit my form, then I will see that user is added into the table, and that user will be added as a dynamic row into this table which is currently empty. So in our upcoming videos, I will see you how you can submit this form, and then you can write a JavaScript code where you can construct the dynamic HTML which is having a row with the data, and then it will append that row into the table. As I told you that our JavaScript web application is running in the Node.js. So you can run locally in Node.js our application. Therefore, you will see that there is a package.json file. So let's go ahead and click on the package.json file and try to understand what kind of portions we have in our package.json file. So you can see in the package.json, I have a script section. In the script, I have two scripts already written and ready for you. The first one is the build script and next one is the serve script. Build script will help you to run the compilation process where you can run your ES6 JavaScript source code and compile it using Webpack into ES5 features. Next, you have a serve script. Serve script will help you to run locally your application into Node.js. So you can see that your server will run locally in Node.js framework. By running npm run serve, you will see that your server is running locally in Node.js framework. And then you will see that your web application is launching and live looking in your own desktop. Next, you will see that I have an engine. So here in the engines, I have defined what kind of Node framework I am using. What is the version? What is the minimum version I needed? So you can define all of this version related Node.js here. Next, you can see that what are the dependent Node libraries I am using in my project. Few of the important libraries that you should notice that we are using in our application is Express and Webpack. Nowadays, Webpack is very much popular. It helps you to bundle any kind of resources. Either it is a JavaScript file, TypeScript file, or image, or fonts, or anything it is. So if you are writing TypeScript project where you have a lot of images, you can always compile them into a single bundled JavaScript file. This is all possible by Webpack. In our application, we will be coding through ES6 features, and therefore I need a Webpack to compile my source code into ES5, which is compatible with IE11 or any kind of browsers which does not support ES6 features. If you notice, I have created two Webpack configurations files. The first one is webpack.config.js file. In this file, I have written all of the required configurations that you need in order to run your web application locally. Basically, it will run a dev server locally in your box where it will show you your application running live in your own box. And it will be a live loading web application. For example, anytime if you change any HTML or JavaScript file, then it will refresh automatically and display the changes in your browser. And the next configuration file that I am using is webpack.prod.js. So another file it is. Basically, the difference between them is the prod.js will not have any kind of debug features. And also, it will minify all of the JavaScript files that we are using in order to ready and deploy it into the cloud. With these two separate Webpack files, there are a lot of opportunities that you can do. For example, if you are trying to deploy your web application over the production environment, then you can do any kind of optimizations that you do not need in your dev environment, like minification, obfuscation, all these kind of things you can do in your prod Webpack environment. So if you are not that much familiar with Webpack, then do not worry, and it is out of the scope of this course. However, I am just giving you some of the glimpse that Webpack has so that it will encourage you to go ahead and learn more about the Webpack. In our application, we will just use Webpack in order to compile our source code. So therefore, do not worry. You don't need to go ahead and learn Webpack right away before you want to continue with this course. You just need to learn that why Webpack is used in this application. Because if you do not know why we are using Webpack, then it will be very difficult to follow along with this course. So therefore, you just need to understand that I have two different kind of Webpack configuration file. First one is the default one, which is the debug mode, and then next one, which is webpack.prod.config, which is for production mode. So whenever we will deploy our code to the production environment, like in a cloud, then I will use the prod Webpack version. Now it is a good time to install all of the Node libraries that I have used in my application. So anytime if you download any Node application from source code like GitHub or any open source repositories, then please consider installing all of the dependencies that that project is using in order to proceed with that application. In order to run all the npm commands, I will use VsCode editor. So you know VsCode is having editors where you can run npm commands. So I will use VsCode editor, and you can click on Ctrl backtick in your keyboard, or you can open from the options where you can view the terminal. So when you open the terminal, in my case I have selected PowerShell as my default terminal. You can select any terminal that you want. Now in this VsCode terminal, let me write npm install. So when I write npm install and run it, it will go ahead and install all of the dependent libraries that I'm using in my own project. Once successfully installations are done, then you can see that here in your project, it has created node_module folder. In the node_modules folder, it has put all of the dependent node libraries that I wanted to install in my application. Next, let's see how you can run this source code locally in your own box and see your HTML page. So, as I told you, in order to run locally, you need to run npm run serve. So let's go ahead and run npm run serve. So you see, it is compiling your JavaScript file and running the web application live in your own desktop. Here you can see our application is coming up and you can see your user registration form. Here, if you go ahead and type out anything, for example, if you are typing any full name which is not correct, or if it is correct full name or email ID, nothing is happening. No validation message is coming, submit button is still disabled. Therefore, you know that this is your starter application. Basically, you see your application HTML is ready and now you have to go ahead and write the JavaScript source code in order to make it functional. If you are coding along with me and so far you have been seeing your own web application running like I was showing here, then congratulations, and now let's go ahead and deploy your source code into the GitHub. If you are facing any difficulties to follow along with me, then please write into the comment box any difficulties that you are facing. I will go ahead and reply as soon as possible. Next, it is a good time to deploy our source code into the GitHub. I will go to the GitHub and click on the new repository. If you have not yet created your account in the GitHub, then please pause this video and go ahead and create the GitHub account. Here in the repository name, I will write my first JS app and then I will put some description which is I want to put it, and you can put your own descriptions and then you can say create your repository. Once you created the repository on GitHub, it will give you two options. With that options, you can submit your source code into the Git. So the first option is where you want to create from the scratch the Git repository. Like in your desktop, you want to create the Git and everything from the scratch. The second option is if you have any existing JavaScript project. Suppose like in our case, we have already downloaded the source code which is our starter code, and that source code I want to submit into GitHub. Then I need to run the second options which is defined over here. Let's go ahead and copy the command line that is given by GitHub in the second option. So I will go ahead and copy this command line and run into the terminal. So whenever you will run this command line into the terminal, you will see that there is some error coming. And this error is a fatal error. So it will say there is a fatal error occurred that there is no repository found. So what should we do? Can you guess what is going on? If you go to the folder structure and open the folder, then you will find that in the folder there is no Git files present. Normally, if the application is connected to the GitHub, or it is ready to submit your code into the GitHub, or it is initialized to be ready to submit into the GitHub, then you will see that inside your source code there will be some Git folder. Normally it creates .git folder and it puts some of the important files which is required in order to push your code into the GitHub. So therefore, in order to put this Git folder, you need to run git initialize command. So let's go ahead into the terminal and we will run git space init. So git space init is a command line which will go ahead and create all of the required files in order to connect your source code to the GitHub. When I run this git-init, then you see it has created .git folder and it has put all of the required files. So now our source code is ready to check in and it's ready to push into our GitHub branch. Now let's go ahead and write some comment and commit this code. Once I commit this code, it is ready to push into GitHub. And how do you know that it is ready to push into the GitHub? If you are using VsCode, then it is very easy. It will show there is a cloud with up arrow key. So whenever it is showing there is a cloud with up arrow key, that means there is some files that you want to push over the GitHub. So let me go ahead and click on this button. Once I click this button, then I can refresh my GitHub and then I can see all of the source code that I had my local, it is got in and checked into the GitHub location. So congratulations, now you have successfully submitted your source code to the GitHub, and then you see that your source code is live and it is right now in GitHub where you can share to your friends and families. If you go to the GitHub, then you will see there is a README file where I have mentioned what are the required videos you should first watch in order to follow along with this course, and also I have mentioned some of the important concepts. Now let's go ahead and check out our source code in the GitHub and make sure that we have all of the files that we had in our local in GitHub right now. So let's go to the client, and there is the app folder here. I can see all of my files here. I can always click on the index.js and see here I have my default console log file. Next, let me go ahead into the index.html page and make sure that all of my HTMLs are present. So here I can see, yes, all of my HTMLs are correctly present here. Whenever you want to work on any project, you must understand what is the business requirement, what kind of requirement you are solving, what is the problem. So in our upcoming video, I will explain you how to understand the problem and then how to come up with solution. Next, you will see how you can split your solution into small components so that you can write a very decoupled small components in order to solve any kind of problems, which can be easily tested and which can be easily deployed into the production environment. So stay tuned for my next video where we will go ahead and learn the very first thing is the validation. So you will see how we can run the validation in our next video, where whenever you will write any wrong information, for example wrong full name or wrong email ID, then we will show the validation messages in our application. So in our next video you will see what are the requirements, and then we will see how we will design our components. So therefore stay tuned and I will see you in my next video. Till then, happy coding and be happy.